Oh, it says we are live. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. I apologize for the 2-minute late start, but we're going to go ahead and get things started. Take an opportunity wherever you're watching this, whether it's YouTube, on Rumble, or over on X. Make sure you like this video. And if you're watching on X, be sure to repost it. If you're watching somewhere else, those shares definitely help. And we're going to get started in just a few moments.
Rice TVX, the mic's live wire. American Pitbull, real gold buyer. Sound money advocate, rights defender. In the crypto arena, he's the top contender. From the gritty streets of the digital age, Rice lays wisdom, chapter and page. Silver, gold, he sports only the bold. Land, life, and liberty, these values hold.
That's right, fam. Today I am joined by Jordan from Waters Above.
Constitution, deep dive, knowledge revival. Navigate the system, critical for survival. Rice engraved like inscriptions on metal. Pitbull in the game, lead foot on the pedal. Land acquirer, a strategic mind. In the fight for freedom, he's frontline. Educator on rights, the law he'll explain. Chris Rice the Pitbull, breaking the chain. In the arena where truths collide, Rice TVX, the certified guide. Silver and gold, land and rights. American Pitbull in the freedom fights. In a world of chaos, he's the calm in the storm. Teaching the masses, ready to inform. Keys to crypto, rights we cherish. His wisdom like paths that others perish. Guardian of wealth, from digital to ancient. His legacy crafted, fearless and patient.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will get started here in just moments, but thank you again for tuning in for today's live stream. I've got links down below for everything we're going to be talking about on today's show, including the playlist that includes all the previous appearances of Waters Above over here on Rice TVX. Again, those likes, those thumbs up, they help with the algorithm. Those shares, those reposts, it'd be greatly appreciated. And let me go ahead real quick and get my last little video out of the way. Shout out to the only sponsor of Rice TVX. That is Presearch, a decentralized search engine with AI that rewards. If you enjoy and appreciate privacy, this is the way to go for your search engine needs. You find information in every video description for Presearch. All right. Now, before I bring on Jordan in just a moment, I got to let you know I've been dealing with so much shadow banning. We've got 16 people watching this live stream. So again, it would be greatly appreciated if you guys could share this live stream out, hit that thumbs up, wake up the algorithm, do what you can, because YouTube is doing everything that they can to suppress the videos. So again, it'd be greatly appreciated. This is a team effort. I can't do this without you guys, the viewers, the subscribers, and supporters of the channel. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my friend, my homie, Mr. Jordan from Waters Above. What's going on, brother?
Oh, man, I'm doing better every day. It's really great to reconnect. Last minute, we made it happen.
Well, you know, for a last minute, I know we did do this very, very last minute, and but I appreciate you doing it today of all days. The only other day I might have appreciated more would have been the 17th of this month. So
Yeah.
just because of the specifics of what's happening on these dates today and the 17th, which we'll get into. Most people should be aware that we are having an annular solar eclipse taking place today. Also, we have a second lunar eclipse taking place on the 17th of October. We just had one a few weeks ago. And today is also the beginning of the Jewish New Year. It is Rosh Hashanah. So happy New Year to all the Hebrews that are watching. I appreciate you guys. Anything else that's aside from the pair of lunar eclipses, the solar eclipse, and Rosh Hashanah that we need to put some attention on?
Yeah, man. I mean, we could get into it more as we go, but I think there's two key dates that are coming up very soon that are particularly tied to this U.S. election and this ongoing war, unfortunately. But that is a big part of my work, kind of figuring out what are some key dates with volatility and trigger points, and these things affect markets naturally. So they could definitely be affecting our portfolios, such as what we've seen over the past 48 hours. So, yeah, I could get into some of that if you'd like, but we know that the big conversation on the world stage is either war or elections. So, and that's been pretty much the entire year, not just for the USA, but also for many, many other countries around the realm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got the the hurricane situation that's obviously just isolated to the United States, the port strike situation. There's a lot going on, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Which
Russia Ukraine
unfortunately,
stuff looks
those
like it
two,
could be wrapping up, hopefully.
but those two things that you mentioned are being like shadow banned by those other events that I mentioned. Like
I'm in North Carolina, my friend. FEMA's
all
not
right.
here. FEMA's not here.
I know. Yeah, I have some homies who live in Asheville, and it's been wild to see what went down there. So, I mean, not to
Have
cut you
you?
off or anything, but I'm just saying that like if you do pay attention to what the world stage is talking about, like they're not talking about that. They're not talking about Tennessee right now.
No, no, they're not. Have you talked? But by the way, have you talked to your friends in Asheville?
Um, Honestly, I've gotten in touch with one, and I guess where the location was, they were high enough up in the mountains and it wasn't as bad. But I've seen some devastating stuff from even within my community. Like,
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
so yeah, it's rough, man. I don't even know what to say about stuff like that because it's like every week when I do a podcast, there's like 10 new horrible events that go down, and I don't even know where to keep up.
No, I know, dude. I know. It's like it's just too much. It's like way too much on the plate to be able to cover everything without losing your mind. And um, the fact that we're able to give all this aid to other countries, and then when our own country is in a dire need, is like, where are you guys at? I heard a couple politicians say some words, but that seems to be the extent of it, unfortunately. So I do want to remind people that I do have a playlist down below, linked in the video description, and I'll put it in the pinned comment after the live stream for the playlist that I created with all of Jordan's previous appearances on the channel. We were going to try to get Blood on today, but Blood, just the timing didn't work out because of the way that we did this and stuff that he has going on today. So shout out to Crypto Blood. And make sure you guys take an opportunity to check out not only Jordan from Waters Above socials, but also his website, watersabove.com, because he does have a free course that he's offering. I saw in a video yesterday, which we'll get into.
That's right.
And then we also have the X account. Make sure you guys are following him at Waters ABVE. It's not above, it's ABVE. So make sure you're following the correct Waters Above, but it is linked in the video description. I got the YouTube channel for Waters Above, and I also have the Patreon where you're going to get all the inside information as well. Anything you want to share about your courses, about the free course, or anything going on with your content before we get into all the craziness?
Yeah, sure. I mean, actually, I would really just like to say for anyone that's supporting my art over the years, or if they just want to know more about crypto in general from a technical analysis perspective, if you're ever seeing anyone go on charts or doing TA or any of that stuff and it's confusing to you, I've been thinking about you guys literally all year. So I've worked overtime, and I know for a fact if it's coming up to an eclipse season, I get way more calls booked. Just my schedule gets wacky. So I worked overtime to get this free course out, and it's available at watersabove.com/free. It's very simple, easy to find. It's really pretty much all the unique elements of my TA that you're not going to normally find in other places. And this allows you to be able to access this information and add it to some of the other stuff that you've learned from other TA analysts out there, which there's many other great analysts. I just wanted to make something different, keep it beginner level, keep it entry level, not super crazy. And another thing is I thought a lot about people who may not be able to afford TradingView or be able to afford charting software. So I designed it completely for free. I show you in the first video how to create a free TradingView account, and then all of the important things that are being covered there, including the indicators that I share the tutorials on. those are free too, including the moon cycle indicator, which so many people have wanted a comprehensive tutorial on. So that's available now. Really excited to have released that. And then for Patreon supporters, I worked even harder over time to get an extended course for them. So I worked to get an extra 5 videos, which go over solar and lunar cycles, the effect eclipses have on the market, also equinoxes and solstices. And then I do a full 35-minute live TA session included in that as well. So somebody will be able to go through that entire thing. And then when they get to the end, I take everything I taught you and even more, like stuff that I share in my crypto mastermind. So I pretty much poured as much value into it as possible. And it's something that I think somebody could finish in a day.
I never put this together, but Jordan above waters is jaw. This is the way from O Rambo. Interesting. But yeah, dude, I really I appreciate you making a course available for free. I think that's really cool that you're doing that, and I appreciate you making the time to do it, because yeah, I mean, I know we had like I said, just a couple weeks ago, a lunar eclipse. Today we have the annual solar eclipse, the Ring of Fire, and then we have in like less than 2 weeks, 15 days from now.
That's right.
Or right over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
14 days would be 2 weeks. So we have the next lunar eclipse. So that pair of lunar eclipses, it sounds like a song, man. A pair of lunar eclipses and a solar eclipse to go.
Yeah, sounds like a good band name.
Yeah, definitely. So
by the way, before we get started, I want to ask you, did you make that intro song with AI, or is that a real artist?
That is AI, but I didn't make it. That was made by Seth from Mind Your Biz. He actually created one for Blood. He created one for himself and one for myself. But
yeah,
that was, yeah, dude, for AI, I was like, so.
It almost sounds like some Wu-Tang shit.
Yeah, it really does. I think that's kind of how he was programming it in, was to kind of have that Wu-Tang vibe.
Some like Raekwon, but without the accent Raekwon.
Yeah, it was really cool, man. And what I really thought about it, and it's sad because it doesn't seem like people really care about talent and authenticity. It seems like if that's what AI can do, the future of music might be AI.
Yeah, bro, we should talk about that too, because I'm a musician and obviously I'm an artist, and I pretty much everything that I do, I try to stay away from utilizing AI, not because I'm like, anti it for everyone's situation, because I think there's times where things like ChatGPT could be incredibly helpful. If you're a coder, or if you're somebody who just wants to aggregate data really quickly, like if you were an accountant or something, these tools are very helpful, right? No different than any other tool or application. But when it starts kind of bleeding into the realm of art, that's where it's really tricky. And I think that the future ahead with what is real and what isn't real is going to be very tough to discern. So yeah,
I think we're already there. I just don't think people have realized that we're already at this point of what is real and what's not real.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have just played that for anyone, they would think that somebody, like a real artist, made that song for you.
Like
exactly.
Yeah.
I assumed it was AI off the bat, because that's just, I know enough now. I've heard enough of it now. Like I could tell when the cadence is a little bit off, or like when the
something's just not human enough.
But bro, like if you go to 2019, that shit didn't exist. We couldn't do that. So this is so new. Anyways, yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, I was gonna say, I got a couple people who I loosely associate with that I never thought were, and they're probably still not actually musicians, but now they're all of a sudden releasing all these songs.
Yeah,
I thought that was it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword.
I remember when we used to make fun of like SoundCloud rappers. I'm like, damn, it's 5 years. You're gonna want those guys back. You're gonna want mumble. You're gonna be begging for mumble rap again, because it's
riff raff.
Exactly. Like I think I talked about this maybe in a recent podcast, but I've been telling people, like, you gotta check in with that truth that I just shared a moment ago. Like seriously, like you gotta think, because I think so many of us who are, let's just say, a little bit more awake to what's going on in the world stage, we look at some people like they're NPCs or whatever, right? Like they're asleep. And I think that with AI and robotics moving in a year of that being normalized, you're going to be praying to have these quote unquote NPCs back in your life. And another thing is, a lot of these so-called, and I'm not calling them that, I'm just using this term so that everyone knows what I'm saying. But like a lot of these so-called NPCs are people that are your plumbers, your electricians, truck drivers, people that are picking all your food. Like the people that you're judging that are, because they don't know about 9/11 being an inside job or whatever, You know, is that really the metric that makes them have no value? It's like, come on, they have 10 times more value than anyone who's sitting around plugging in chat prompts into chat fucking GPT. You know, like when you really take a look at it from a
Oh
less
yeah.
myopic viewpoint.
Well, wait, I mean, I still feel like, things are going to get worse before they get better. And I still feel like we're going to have a shit hits the fan kind of situation. And that's where you're going to appreciate people like that, because programming some AI, especially if you don't have access to the internet, really isn't going to help you very much. So,
Yeah.
uh, just something to consider. I mean, I think that's why I've always encouraged people, like, real life skills are stuff that people should be trying to acquire, learning as much as possible. I've even talked about stuff that you don't know how to do that you want to know how to do. It might be a good time to start downloading videos and assembling some sort of offline library so that you're able to maintain things that you'd like to be able to watch that
That's
may not
right.
be available in the future. And that's stuff that Whitney Webb has talked about, and I want to put more emphasis on videos. But yeah, dude, I was really, really impressed by your video yesterday, because it was kind of like a culmination of a lot of things that you've been talking about this year. And you kind of, to me, it was like the most summarized version of everything. Uh,
Thank you.
Again, today is Rosh Hashanah.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask real quick, without getting into the charts right now, when's the last time we experienced a solar eclipse of any sort on Rosh Hashanah? Because that's kind of eerie.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have an answer to that. I've been thinking about that though. Like when I said it in my video yesterday, because I've said it thousands of times now. And then somebody actually asked me the same question. Somebody that was Jewish. They reached out to me and they were like, "Do you know the last time this occurred?" And I don't. And also just
It,
to remind people, this annular solar eclipse, it's kind of visible from the middle of the ocean. Like it's really not going to be visible in many places. Like weird islands out there, you know? So like I can't even name the places that it'll be
well,
visible.
I thought it was supposed to be visible in the southern part of North America,
Well, sure.
and in South America.
I just mean like in regards to the path of totality, like it's
Okay.
nothing like what happened with Great American Eclipse on April 8th, where that was literally like something that on in these 50 states you could easily access from many vantage points. But anyways, it's not as important. The thing that I wanted to get into is that no, I actually do not know when we've had a solar eclipse on Rosh Hashanah, but we must have them once in a while because Rosh Hashanah is always on the new moon. So
Oh,
if
okay.
it's a new moon, it's a solar eclipse.
Yeah.
If there were to be an eclipse, and eclipses around this time of year are not weird in regards to September and October, you know. So I should look into that, and maybe if like after this podcast, you could reach out like with a quick text message, and I'll look into that for my next time doing a podcast or a YouTube video, and I'll see if I could find any connections.
This particular eclipse that we're having today, is it starting around 2 p.m. Eastern time? Is that what you've gathered?
Effectively, I mean, I it says right now, according to the data that I have, that it's going to be in 22 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
So it's literally going to be starting like very, very
While we're
soon.
streaming.
Pretty much,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is and again, everything I'm showing here on screen for people that are interested is linked down below. If you'd like to learn more about Rosh Hashanah, because that is today, I do have some information down below in the video description. Today is October 2nd. We have this solar eclipse happening. We had the partial lunar eclipse that took place 17th, 18th of September. And then a month later, which is 15 days from today, we have another lunar eclipse. So you've been talking a lot in previous videos about us being in a solar cycle, and the solar cycle should come to an end, I believe, from what you said, from what I remember, is Q1, Q2 ish of 2025.
Yep.
And this would be the fourth solar eclipse in the solar phase,
Hmm.
which not right away, not today, but generally starts the beginning of the kickoff of the final,
Yes.
most bullish phase of a bull run, which would end the bull run after that and then begin the next bear run. Am I on point
Yeah.
with that?
Yes. Someone's been paying attention.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, so just to give you guys the exact dates, I mean, it doesn't really matter what you consider is the start of the next lunar cycle, but I would go ahead and make it nice and easy for everyone and say it will be the total lunar eclipse of March 13th, 2025. So what's really powerful about March 13th is if you remember this year, that was the Bitcoin top. And also March 13th of 2020 was the lows of the C19 crash. And it was a Friday the 13th that I believe Bill Gates stepped down from being in the leadership position of Microsoft. So the 13th of March and the fact that the total lunar eclipse is landing on that day is most likely going to get ritualized regarding next year. So I'm just getting that out of the way now. There's a very big significance to that specific date. So that's why I wanted to like kind of drill that in here 6 months in advance, pretty much. Now, another thing you brought up about how after this particular eclipse that we're in now, this annular solar eclipse, or what we could call the fourth and final solar eclipse of our solar cycle, you could also call this the beginning of the end of the bull run. This is kind of like where things start to get very, very extreme. We could, in the midst of a parabola, have many shakeouts. We've seen this in 2017 with crypto. We saw this with Bitcoin back in the 2013 cycle as well. We also saw this in 2021, where Bitcoin was going through many 20% corrections on its way up to its all-time high.
Okay. I got plenty of questions to ask you about price action, but I guess it'd be better to wait till we kind of get, charts pulled up and stuff like that, because
Sure.
you're the way that I'm kind of gathering the information without trying to give too much away with the in between is that around March-ish of next year, you're thinking that we're going to have cycle tops in.
No.
Okay.
If you want me to talk in regards to what I feel the behavior of price will be in relation to that lunar eclipse, I can to clarify things.
Okay. Do you
Sure.
want to pull up chart action?
Sure. Also, let me try to get this up, and then also just to let everyone know, I have covered this inside of that free crypto course too. A little
Okay.
bit. I've covered it, especially in the Patreon membership version. Let me know if you could see my chart.
Yes, let me get it added to the stage. So here it is.
Okay. So really quickly, I want to go through two of our past cycles because those are the ones that I think are the most fair to compare, considering that the cycle back before the 2017 peak, there was very little altcoins in existence, and it was pretty much the Bitcoin show. Also, this 2017 market is a little, or 2016, 2017 is a little bit more a mirror reflection of what we're experiencing now, also because of the Trump situation. So I'm not going to go political right now, but I'm just letting you know. I think it's fair, more fair to talk about this cycle and this cycle than to bring up this cycle naturally.
Okay.
So let's just quickly explore how we reacted to this fourth and final solar eclipse of the solar cycle. So we're going from that last eclipse, which would be like talking about today. Okay. We're going to see that we peaked about 118 days after. Now, another thing is we have from the lunar eclipse that came in and the start of the lunar cycle, which I believe was right here, we have about 43 days before. So remember 118 and remember 43. Now we're going to do the same thing really quickly while your memory is fresh. We're going to the
118 and what?
43.
43. I got it written down, so we're good.
Okay, beautiful. So what we're talking about now is measuring from the fourth and final solar eclipse of 2020 to our cycle peak in April, and we have 121 days, okay, compared to 118. You see how
Right.
close that is? Now we're going to do the same
impossible.
thing backwards. We're going to go from the 25th of May, and you're going to see 41. So we're talking a very tight bandwidth of dates between
Yes.
41 to 43 days going backwards and 118 to 121 going forward. So I'm going to measure from today, and I'm going to show that it will end us in about the dates of January 28th through 31st. And then when we go backwards from the March 13th date that I already brought up, and we go 41 days, we get January 31st, and then 43 days is January 29th. So you can see our relationship to that time frame is nearly identical compared to what happened back in 2021 and what happened back in 2017. And also, if you look at where we're trading at right now, I need to shut this all off, and then I'll get
Okay.
back. I'll get back to the dates. Okay. This is where the peak was. This is where your fourth solar eclipse of the solar cycle was. Bitcoin was effectively retesting its prior all time highs. Well, look at where we are today. We're literally retesting the same zone that we were of April 2021. I know we went higher, but the point is we never broke into price discovery, right? It's obvious. We're on 7 months of sideways and down. Okay. So there's been no expansion. We've just gotten back to like a really janky triple top. So, which are bullish, by the way, especially after you spend so much time in this range, retesting prior cycle peaks. But now getting back to the dates of the 29th through, let's just call it the end of January. Well, that also happens to be Chinese New Year. That's a new moon. And like I teach, we are very bullish typically around new moons, and all of our cycle peaks were new moons. So that aligns very nicely. And also, another thing I find interesting is that will be the first Federal Reserve FOMC meeting of the year 2025. So I do suspect that there'll be a rate cut this next meeting, which is coincidentally right after the election, the day after. And then we have another rate cut likely. Again, I'm not saying it will happen, but it's a likely in December. And then we won't have another meeting until the end of January. And I think during that time frame, there's a potential next surge in price. And then I could get into some of the more esoteric things, but for now, I think that's a really good starting point.
No, definitely. January 28th and 29th. You said, is that a new moon?
Yes, it'll be Chinese New Year, which also is always on a new moon.
It is, yeah, because it is so crazy. Like we've mentioned before, how these FOMC dates are kind of aligned with something that's going on astrologically. Because the last one, I believe, was right after or during the lunar eclipse.
Yeah, they do this on purpose because they know the energetics. They know that people are.
It's just crazy. I mean, to think that the rest of the world hasn't caught on to this shit by now, being that stars are everywhere, moon, sun, when we see this stuff, and it just hasn't. It's like they're, it's right in front of people's faces, but for the most part, it's like people are blinded by it because there's no attention put on it from the mainstream.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get it. It's like anything. The truth is a tough pill to swallow, but it sets you free. And also, when you get truth, you need to kind of take your emotions out of it because most of the time the truth hurts, right? Like knowing these things can break people's hearts. You know how many people who didn't know about the Shemitah year, which is 99.99% of investors, if they knew about this truth, including Michael Burry himself, he could have made much better plays, and a lot of people would have prevented themselves from getting finessed by the dot-com bubble and many other bubbles in situations that have happened prior, which I can name them all, you know? So like, I think that it's very powerful stuff. And knowing about the Hebrew calendar in isolation could really help an investor. I'm not saying you have to go to the synagogue and start becoming, you know, that. No, you just study these calendrical systems and get into astrology to an extent. You know, when you come across my work, I'm not showing you astro charts. I'm not showing you anything like super, super complicated in regards to, you know, like where's this one constellation and this one sign or this one house, or you don't need to really go that deep. Really, all you need to see is the power of the sun and the moon, because that's the energetics of the market. And that's the energetics of the physical and spiritual components of our existence. And I know that's a little deep, but that's what all esoterica has been showing you for centuries. And that's why all the symbolism you get in the so-called Illuminati is showing you this. It's just sun and moon symbolism.
Yeah, if we think about that too, like the original calendar system that I understand, or the one that was before the one we have now, was 13 months, 28 days, and that would follow a lunar cycle, which would put the first every Monday, and I think the 28th every Sunday. Very interesting kind of concept when it comes to that, because I mean, obviously we relate things from the calendar from those perspectives as well, not just adding on holidays and such, but or events, but like the calendars are based off of cycles. I think this calendar is based on solar cycles or something to that effect, if I'm not mistaken, because we've gotten off the lunar cycle.
Yeah, the Gregorian system is basically fixed. It's operating no different than tropical astrology, where it's fixed everything. So it stops observing the actual sky, and it just goes with having that system cemented in its dates. And then there's only a couple of instances where you'd see, I don't want to call it anomalies, but like planned alterations, such as with a leap year or adding that extra day to February. So they, bro, it's so funny that you brought this 28 and 13 up, because you're talking about the pre-Gregorian system, which wasn't universal, by the way. It was
Right. No.
attempted at being universal through the Holy Roman Empire until effectively they, Council of Nicaea, and there's all these historical events that went down. But I don't want to go that route. To stay on track here, I get asked all the time by people, and this is kind of funny to bring up early, but I think it's important. I get asked all the time by people about, like, when do I see the end times being? Like everyone wants to know. They're like, if you're such a great decoder or whatever, you should know about the end. So I thought to take 28 times 13, which gives you 364, very close to the 365 date that we use now for a year. And then I added that to 1776, which is the year of the United States independence, right?
Yep.
And that brings you to the year 2140. And I know that this isn't the most scientific approach, but if we start getting into a couple of other things that are interesting regarding history, right? You all know that history was written by the winners. History is written by narrative scribes. It's not written in truth or reality, right? We know in 10 years there will be textbooks that will speak about C19 the way that CNN spoke about C19, not the way you experience C19. Okay? The numbers and everything will be according to whatever the narrative is. And then in 100 years, there'll be nobody to even argue it,
Right.
except for people that study and go deeper into the truth. So I'm not trying to say that the United States Independence Day is a hoax. I'm not trying to say that, these individuals never existed, although there is a conversation for that. But just use your intuition and don't take everything you hear at face value and question things, right? So in my opinion, I think the 1776 date is representative of a reset date, a reset year. And we have lots of missing time. And when you start learning about, like, the pre-mud flood and Tartarian Empire, and you go down that route, you start to realize that there's a lot of weird shit that was going on in the so-called historical narrative around the times of, like, George Washington, for instance. And you get this conversation around, like, grand solar minimum and these crazy winters and weather that they were experiencing back then. Well, I think that time frame is just giving you a year to latch onto. And there's many other significant years of the past that hold weight and merit. And the only reason why I'm pulling out the 1776 date is because of the big connection with the Bavarian Illuminati and the fact that that's their founding year. May 1st, May Day, which I actually had a decode for because that will be the next Israel Independence Day next year. It will be landing on May Day. So crazy stuff. There's another decode coming for that. But needless to say, Bavarian Illuminati year is synchronized with the United States Independence year. I don't find that's not a coincidence. I don't even think humans were on this plane in 1776. I think they were in underground, sophisticated tunnel systems, which we know exist. Anyone who's done any research into this, if you think that your recent militaries have built out all these deep underground military bases, it's time to wake up. This shit has existed for centuries, okay? We rediscovered our realm. We didn't build it. We rediscovered it. There's shit that surrounds us in our world that we have no idea today, with the best architects in this planet, how to build, okay? So, and I'm not just talking about the Giza pyramids. There's many
We've rediscovered a lot of technologies. I've seen so much about when you even just bringing this up, I've seen stuff about boring tunnels, how there was technology to bore tunnels back then. Back in the 1800s, there was technology to do this. And a lot of people were questioning whether or not they were just trying to reverse engineer the technologies that they were finding because they didn't create it themselves. So I've already gone down this rabbit hole. Even the whole idea that anybody that supposedly has existed before anybody alive today, you can't prove. You really, like, somebody could, like, we could write our own history book and go into and try to set this as being the narrative for the future as to what took place in the past, just like what you were saying with the education system. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy
it
when
is
you
whatever you believe it to be. Like, and the thing is most people settle on whatever they're taught by the narratives, by the popular narrative. So I think 1776 is a powerful year to decode, to get into deeper. A lot of people who follow astrology were mentioning the 222 Pluto's return 2 years ago, and it's tied to the signing of the Declaration of
1776,
Independence,
yeah.
precisely. Um, Bro, this is the biggest psyop and scam of all time. For everyone to just go ahead and believe that 1776 was the year. I mean, it's anyways.
Well, during that same time period, I believe, because I didn't even realize this until like rediscovering and restudying history outside of the
Mhm.
education system. But Napoleon stuff was going on that same time period.
Yep.
So there was a lot that was actually like going on
Yep.
as far as like that time period, as far as history is concerned.
And that's actually something I started decoding last month, believe it or not, the French Revolution, because of all the things tied to Paris this year and France. We even had Hurricane Francine. We had Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. We had the Paris, France Olympics. We had the this Francine, the path that it took was from Louisiana, which is King Louis, and that's literally the origin of the name. You could go look it up.
right.
And then it
No,
went
yeah.
to St. Louis, St. Louis, again, another French king, not the same, but it was named after another French king. I believe that we're moving into a mirror of what that time was. And you'll see, of course, over the past 5 years, it's obvious that France is going through a lot of protests. So Europe is in the process of going through all of these protests, and they're going to have a revolution. And this is precisely why they're doing what they're doing with the ECB, and they're bringing in these potential central bank digital currencies, and everything that they're doing in Europe was pre-planned because they needed to make Europe the Eurozone at the time that they did because of shifts in the energetics. Again, the people that are ruling the world are following the stars. They're following the cosmology of things. They know they influence over humanity. So if you know that something will make humans weak, well, that's the perfect time to sink your teeth into your victim. When people
Wow.
are strong and empowered and enlightened, then it's very tough for you to do what you do to them, right? You need to be a little bit more sophisticated in the agenda, hence the launch of artificial intelligence at the time that they did, hence all of these things that are going on with the economy. It's never really to take you down, it's to test you and see where you're at with things, because people who are strong will see these things as a challenge and they'll decide to overcome it and see it as an opportunity, but the masses cannot. So what we're getting close to, and if you want to share your opinion on this, I would love to hear, but I think we're getting very close to civil unrest amongst the populace, and not just for the United States, I think in general, because we're being so squeezed by leadership and incompetent leadership. And believe it or not, it's not even the leadership's fault. It was always up to the individual. Just like you can decide to do what you're doing with your microphone, and I decide to do what I'm doing with my microphone and my time, everyone else could decide to do those things as well. So, I mean, it's a choice on the individual level. It's just people over the past 100 years put too much faith in their so-called leaders. They decided to believe in a government, governare mente, it means mind control. You decided to believe in that system and voting its way into being a thing. And here we are. Now you've realized it's all a scam. You realize college is a scam. You realize the entire system is a scam just because of the C19 event. So I think we're heading into that time, and that's why Hollywood keeps making Civil War movies. This is exactly the reason. They're trying to predictively program you to get ready for whatever goes down on the world stage. Same thing with any big apocalypse-like things. They've made many of those movies. And
Aliens,
how many
extraterrestrials.
exactly? And I'll finish it up with just how many AI robot war movies have they made just in the past couple years, showing you what the implications are of merging with humanoid like robots who have AI tech.
Oh, there's been a lot of programming going on, my friend. There's definitely been a lot of programming going on, and everything you said just like got me so intrigued, and takes me back to the conversation of we really should do some podcasts that have nothing to do with crypto charts or any of that kind of stuff, because I really do think that we could have some intense conversations in regards to some of these topics that we talked about.
Of course.
If you don't mind, kind of going back to the crypto element, I wondered when you mentioned the 2140 year. My friend Crypto Billy's in the chat. He was like, "Well, what year is the last Bitcoin mined?" And it's around that time period, 2140 ish.
Are you kidding me?
It could be a little before, it could be a little after, but yeah, about 2140 ish.
That's it, bro. One Bitcoin is gonna, one Satoshi is gonna be like $1 trillion, and it's the whole world's gonna be Zimbabwe, and we'll be happy and owe nothing.
You got it. You got it. Do you work for the World Economic Forum?
No, man.
Why
I told
you don't
everyone.
show your face.
I told
Are
everyone
you really
that.
Klaus Schwab? Are you using AI to like talk to me?
Yeah, yeah. I told everyone that I'm the first intelligent artificial intelligence that was designed by Steve Buscemi.
Buscemi, nice, nice.
Steve Biscotti or whatever.
You're not talking about Buscemi?
I'm just fucking around, bro.
Okay.
It's my favorite thing to pronounce people's names
incorrectly. So like me calling you Joden?
Yeah, you could call me whatever you want at this point.
It's all good.
I'm just a Klaus Schwab AI program. So,
all right. Okay. So what I wanted to ask you was your outlook for Bitcoin and crypto between now and March. Mm-hmm. When are we looking at for the is it March 13th lunar eclipse?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so somewhere between now and the end of March. And the reason I asked you this is because if we're in a traditional 4-year cycle, we should see cycle tops in 2025. And you were always calling for Q4 all-time highs. So I'm wondering, are we lessening cycles? Are we still looking at potentially an all-time high towards the end of 2025? Because that would be, I know that we've seen all-time highs at the beginning of lunar cycles, because that's kind of how it works.
Let's just quickly delineate the difference between an all-time high and a cycle peak. Okay, those are very clear different things. Like Bitcoin already hit an all-time high technically in March, right? It cemented multiple daily closes and bi-weekly candle closes at new all-time highs. Actually, Bitcoin's been, from a monthly perspective or a bi-monthly or a quarterly perspective, have already hit many all-time high records. But a cycle peak is different language, right? So I've always been calling for an all-time high in 2024. But as for the cycle peak, this is something where you need to dial it in a little bit more, because it's the tiniest little euphoric stage. And I've always been leaning towards Q4 to start noticing it, like the parabolic advance. But as for the end, I mean, really, what difference would it make if it was December 31st or January 31st? So if it ends up kind of playing that way, I mean, but still, I've always been very clear in my language between what a cycle peak is and what an all-time high is.
Okay, well, for this cycle, I don't think that we've got the actual all-time high for this bull
but we've
cycle.
hit all-time highs.
We have hit all-time highs. I agree, and it was very premature, something that happened before a halving that's never taken place before.
Exactly.
And we're right now in the time period of where we should start seeing some upward action based off previous cycles and where we were in the halving and where we are now. Mm-hmm. Based off the last halving, just so people are putting that all together.
Which is all kind of very well in alignment.
Indicator. Yeah.
That's all kind of aligned perfectly. Yeah. And I have actually I started the series last week in a Red Pill podcast over on my Patreon, and I'm gonna continue to add to it, which is like decoding the exact Bitcoin all-time high and how I see it going. Because if we are to, for instance, move up before March, which is typical that we top before the lunar eclipse, and I showed you guys in 2 of our most famous examples, well then what about Q4, right? We always top out in Q4, even actually technically hit an all-time high in November 2021, right? It was a double top. It was ugly as shit, but it was still technically an all-time high.
It was higher than the other high. So yeah, that's technically an all-time high, even if it's $1.
Yes. So this is why I'm entertaining a theory, which I don't know if I've spoke to you about in the past, but it's not a double top, but it's a double cycle peak. A double peak cycle, you could call it. So kind of like what happened back in 2013 over here. You see that we had this run up into March, April, came for a huge correction, and then we consolidated chop sideways after a retracement, and then we shot off there into Q4.
Okay, now in theory, just where you're at right there. If we're looking at where is the March time frame where you were just at?
What do you mean?
You were just where you were just comparing the previous cycle, and you were saying March we were here. So that if we're looking, let's say that's March, that's going to be in 5 months from now.
This would be more aligned with like what I think would be the end of January, around Chinese New Year, January 28th to 29th ish. Kind of what I showed you in the measuring example. That's kind of what I would compare this to. So I'm
Okay.
entertaining that this could be like a initial cycle peak that has a very deep correction, and then we're sideways all the way until around the end of the summer. And then instead of peaking into December, I would say that we would peak potentially into August, before the September 7th total total lunar eclipse, excuse me,
In 25.
in 25. So
Okay.
the reason why I'm entertaining this is because if you look at the relationship of the double top, look at how Bitcoin literally topped right like just days before the second lunar eclipse of our lunar cycle.
Yeah.
So we still know that these lunar eclipses are powerful. We had a huge correction at the start of the lunar cycle, but then we bumped back up. Now, the reason why I think a lot of this went down is because we were in a Shemitah year, and the people who were controlling the markets are following the stars. So there was something to this final liquidity injection. And we know that the economy was in a much different state than it was back then. But I am entertaining this as a possibility because there's another synchronicity, and that has to deal with moving into the year of the snake, which this was also during the year of the snake. So I have many elements that I've combined. And I can't deny that the last year of the snake was during this double peak cycle, whatever you'd like to call it. And it was in alignment with kind of a similar energetics, if you will, that we're getting and that we're moving into right now.
Okay. So you're kind of thinking that we'll have a cycle top between now and March, and then a deep correction, and towards the August time frame, potentially going into all-time highs for this cycle.
Yeah,
kind of like full run.
Kind of like this. Something chop. Don't worry about the timing so much.
Okay. No, I'm glad we had this conversation because I was thinking you were calling for all-time highs in Q4 of this year, but you're calling for cycle tops of Q4 of this year.
Sorry. What do you? I'm getting confused now.
Yeah, I was kind of confused, but yeah, I think you cleared it up.
I'll clear it up. We should be in price discovery by November, meaning we should see Bitcoin start concretely closing above 74K by November. Then moving through December, which is a powerful month because it has 2 new moons, a black moon, very rare. We should then shoot through the new year, no different than what happened in 2020, moving into 2021. And then we should have most of the gains coming in January, which is actually no different than what happened in 2021, where if you look, this move right here, I mean, it was February technically, but like that was a lot of the energy right there. And then we were met by a pretty decent correction. So I have a hard time entertaining that Bitcoin can make it up into like 200 or 300,000 or anything like that before March. That just seems like, where the fuck is that money going to come from? But a 6-figure Bitcoin before March, that I could entertain. Now, the other thing we have to throw in here as well, that would not reach stock to flow model. And so far, Bitcoin has always caught up with stock to flow. And that sits at like 400,000, moving halfway through 2025. And because, again, for those that believe in the traditional 4-year cycle, if we are to top out 4 years after the technical top of November 2021, then that gives us a lot of room for potentially moving into multi-6-figure Bitcoin. But we got to reassess after what this initial phase is, because Bitcoin does not fuck around with that first lunar eclipse. Even in this situation here where we went up for the double top, we had a 55% correction here, and this marked the end of alt season for a majority of the alt market. So I would, all I'm saying is that if we do start moving into price discovery by November, and we start seeing Bitcoin get closer to that 6-figure, this is an if and when situation, but I mean, it's rare to dial it in this tight, right? With the timing and the prices. I would say that if we're already in 6 figures-ish, by the start of 2025, I would start getting ready to de-risk, even if we do have potential to push much higher because this lunar eclipse is pretty devastating. There's only a couple of examples where we push up past the lunar eclipse, and I think like the one best example would be Solana. Solana did in fact continue its price discovery into the lunar cycle, but I have a reason for that.
Well, you also have VC too, man, and it's like there's a lot of VC coins pumping, so people need to pay attention to the VC stuff and why
Sure.
certain coins are pumping.
Sure, and that it's still along the same kind of outlook that most of us have here. If you've been in crypto for any length of time, when you are taught about alt season, right? There's this surge in Bitcoin dominance along with price discovery for Bitcoin, and then it keels over and that floods into the altcoin market, right? And then it'll tear down from like the top caps to the absolute shit coins, right? And that's typical. We see that all the time. So if we were to see some shitties go into April and May, that's not weird. That fits along with everything else I've been teaching, but we got to keep in mind Bitcoin, right? Because it is the energy of the market. And another thing to bring up is this March event, bro. It might not be something that allows for extension in the altcoins. It might be an everything gets ritualized moment, right? So I am not gonna go too deep into this right now because it's all just theoretical and I like to stay in facts and like reality. So just remind everyone here, we're working with very, very limited data. This is something I brought up in my last video. Even in the Bitcoin sake of having only 14 or so years of data, it's hard as a actual technical analyst, not somebody who's just drawing fucking lines on the charts for no reason. You know, like I know we have some lines on this chart right now, but we're aligning it with fibs. We're talking about stock to flow. We're talking about eclipses, all these other things combined. It's a very sophisticated system to help me gather as much intel as I can into foreseeing what the future will be. But if you're trying to apply this to like Avalanche, well, then it might not work because Avalanche has no chart history. Like compared to something like Apple. With Apple, it would be super easy to do this shit compared to even Bitcoin.
Right.
And I just don't specialize in that field. And also the attention's not there. So the attention's in the crypto market. And I think that's the way we're moving. So it's best to stay in that circle of competence.
Okay, two quick questions. One is you said the Chinese New Year is the 28th, 29th timeframe of January.
Yeah, the new moon of January at the end.
And that'll be taking us into the year of the snake.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you did mention on the last video, because you were kind of like when you're talking about this lunar eclipse on March 13th. Are we going to already be in the lunar cycle at that point, or this at the tail end of the solar cycle, or is it kind of they bleed together?
Yeah, like I said earlier, that's the start. The start of the technical lunar cycle would be the total lunar eclipse of that Gregorian year of 2025.
And that's where lunar eclipses have a lot more of a negative impact on price action.
Lunar eclipses in a lunar cycle do.
Yeah, that's
solar eclipses in a solar cycle have a more bullish effect, but in regards to the price rises into eclipses, and then it tends to fall after them. And this is kind of the chop that you get across that 700-year cycle, a 700-day cycle. So these solar or lunar cycles are approximately 700 days each, but the lunar cycles do tend to be a little bit shorter in some instances. But that requires like a whole deep dive. Effectively, yes, we do have more bearish energy kick in on lunar eclipses during lunar cycles.
I just want to make sure, and I thought I understood it correctly, but I'm trying to help everybody else out too. You mentioned March 1965. What took place back then?
March 1965. Oh, the United States. Yeah, bro, I have a billion dates in my head.
Yeah, it's all good. I got
so the fact that I can even remember some of this shit is wild. It shows you that I am a Klaus Schwab AI. But yeah, so on March 8th, 1965, the United States of America technically went to Vietnam.
March 8th, 1965.
But let's just call it April 1965 was when they officially got involved in the Vietnam War.
Was that also a year of the snake?
Correct. And it's the same situation with 1917 when they went to World War I. It was also the same situation with 1941 where they went to World War II. Or sorry. Let me correct that. I think it's 1941.
1941?
Let me just quit. Yes, I'm correct. So it was 1917 with World War I, 1941 with World War II, and 1965 with Vietnam. And all three of those examples are the year of the snake. Also, the invasion of Afghanistan after 9/11 in 2001 during the year of the snake. So I am almost certain that the United States will go to war after January, let's just call it February and on of 2025, because that'll technically be in the year of the snake. But if I had to dial it in, it would be March, April would be the climactic war event involving more than just these local Middle East, or the Israel conversation. I
Yeah,
think it'll
yeah.
start including more big names such as
Well, it already
Russia,
is.
China. It already is, but it's just because they need to leak it out early. But I'm talking about like real deal shit. Like what
Yeah,
just
no.
happened? What just happened over the last 40? I would say three days. The
Oh,
last three
that
to
was
four
just that
days.
was like a little spat.
Yeah, but also it's very extreme and compared to how things were seeming for months and months and months. Like this ground invasion of Lebanon and then Russia coming in and being like, you can't do that. That's a fucking huge development for them to get in this conversation. So
Yeah.
we're now pretty much full blown World War III. I don't know how you could deny that.
I think we've kind of already been there. It's just we don't recognize war to be what we think it is. Our
Yeah.
perception of it is,
And
and
they'll wait and wait and wait to call it a World War III until the United States of America joins.
which
Until Team Hollywood joins, that's when they'll officially call it World War III. And then the whole
right,
world, the essence of the world will change in that way, because giving it that title, right? It's no different than any other quotable moment, like with Donald Trump and Make America Great Again. Like they're using these kind of terms and these, oh man, how many did we get during C-19? The stay 6 feet apart or all of that shit. Like it was all just programming your subconscious to be in that mode. So that's your default mode. Like when you wake up in the morning, your default mode will be World War III. Okay. And then everything is kind of, the program is built off the software of World War III. It's going to be fucked up, because people that are around the world that are absolutely not affected by this at all will succumb to this, and they'll be in a very deep state of fear. And I know that the elites are going to use all of that energy to do what they do best, get more control and more globalism.
I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense because I mean, I think a lot of people can probably agree with this statement that something doesn't feel right in general, just with life. Something doesn't feel right. And I feel like this has been an escalation of where we're at. All signs are pointing to yes, they're putting the World War III verbiage out. They're putting it out. The fact that we're backing Ukraine like we are, backing Israel like we are, we're already a part of the war. We're just not on the ground fighting directly, but we're aiding. So it's like we're already a part of it. But I could definitely see an escalation take place and try to get that escalation to wrap up as quick as possible. And by April, May of next year, it be over with. And it'd be really interesting if we see Trump get elected and he's able to this thing kind of gets out of hand, and then he's able to end it. Get all the right people together and end it, because I definitely feel like we're building up to something. So the timing of everything definitely feels right. And I could see, and then I could see it because nobody really wants us to go. Nobody really, like Russia really doesn't want to go to war with the United States. The United States really doesn't want to go to war with Russia. They really don't want to. They can't really afford it. They can't handle it. It's with everything else that's going on. So I could see something being wrapped up fairly quick, not lasting for years, for sure.
That's very optimistic.
I just don't. But it all depends too on who gets in office and where we're at in that position, because there's so many. And believe me, I'm not counting on Trump. Okay, I'm just using it as an example.
Sure.
There's so many different possibilities of things that can happen. We have undocumented individuals coming in from the border that we don't even know who they are. We've already have the DHS, FBI had to go apprehend some ISIS terrorists that got through the border. So we don't know what kind of situation can happen, because we're already seeing destabilization of some local areas because of large amount of immigrants. And that could escalate into a kinetic situation. It could escalate into a martial law situation. I mean, I did a video talking about them being a potential mercenary army. So, and that could escalate things here in the United States, which could still have the same outcome of what you're saying for January to March, April-ish, and not necessarily include the Middle East, because
Yep.
It could all be here.
Yep.
For all we know, that's what I'm saying. There's so much happening. It's just like it's almost it's I shouldn't say almost. It is 100% definitely overwhelming how much shit is happening all around the world and trying to keep up with it and keep your sanity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like kind of the '08 situation in many ways, '07, '08 in a way where we don't really know just yet that it's about to get really bad, but we could feel that it's gonna maybe get a little bad because the layoffs are coming. Like there's just like all these moving parts. But one thing to mention, and it's not to kill your optimism, but it's just to share some numbers. If we look at the World War II timeline, it started technically in 1939 and it ended in 1945. I think if we were to add the 6 years to 2023 from October 7th event, which I think was really the official moment, it wasn't the Russia-Ukraine invasion. It
Which
was
one?
October 7th, 2023, the war declared by Israel on
Yes,
Hamas. I
the
think
invasion.
I would say that's probably a much bigger trigger point, even though of course we could entertain that the Russia-Ukraine conflict is one, but it was so isolated and then it kind of just got like left to its own territory. And this Israel conversation has pretty much been a weekly basis update every week since 2023, October 7th. So I would entertain that 2023 was the effective start of that war, Year of the Rabbit, and it will end at the end of the next Shemitah year. So I don't think it's going to end any like soon. Personally, I think it's going to end in 2029, moving into their planned agenda 2030, and that has a lot of timing synchronized with the amount of time that the U.S. typically spends in wars. With a Trump or not Trump, I don't really think it matters. I think it's just what do the central banks want to do at the end of the day? What does BlackRock want to do? What do the central planners want to do? What do the foreign of council relations want to do? Like they want a land grab. Okay. If people want the truth, what happened in Asheville, no offense, and I know this is fucking sucks to hear, but this is a land grab for all of the lithium that's there. What happened in Maui was a land grab. It's to create an event to wash out the populace so that they could come in and do what they do. They don't give a fuck about you. And this is why they've made homeowners insurance and flood insurance and fire insurance and all the insurance nearly impossible to get your hands on, even if you have the money to afford it. They don't fucking care about you. And they run the banks, they run the insurance companies, they run it all. So when it comes to war, just remind yourself that all past wars were just a land grab. This is a property and land acquisition campaign.
That makes sense. But let me ask you. I mean, we're not trying to drag this thing out, but you said 1939 to 1945 was the last big skirmish, or what did you mention those years?
Yeah, technically, if you were to look up the World War II timeline, those are the 2 years they tell you were the start year and the end year.
Okay,
6 year.
how did the markets perform during that time period? Were we seeing upward action in the markets? Because I would think that with wartime, you're not going to see stocks going like crazy.
Well, the difference between then and now is there was no tech stocks back then. There was no, dude, totally different market, you know? But I can speak to that because there is a couple of astrological things. For instance, this goes a little deeper into astrology, so most people probably don't know. But the Jupiter Uranus conjunction that happened in Taurus this year, actually, the last time it happened, bro, was in 1941. And that was right when the US entered the war. Also during the year of the snake. We were more synchronized with Dragon Year, though. So that's, I don't want to say 1940 because when I was studying the 1940 charts, we just don't have enough. We don't have enough similarities. I mean, is Netanyahu becoming the next Hitler? And then that's your mirror where you went from like the Jews being attacked to now the Jew, you know what I'm saying?
The
I
Jews, the
don't,
attacker.
I mean, the facts are there. The facts are facts. Like
Yeah.
if you look at the displacement of Jews during World War II, and this isn't to offend people, it's just to give you the data. I think it was like over the course of a 2-year time span, it was 200,000 people displaced, and it was during a particular frame of years. I think it was not pre-Holocaust, during it. But anyways,
Holocaust, I thought, yeah, no, yeah, it was World War II. So yeah, it was kind of like, it's like, hey, if you don't want to die, go over here.
Well, that's also been the case this time around too. Like we should all have known because we have access to internet, like what places are safe and what places aren't. Like I've been having people 2 years ago that were like, I have family in Lebanon, and I was telling them, go, don't fucking stay there if you could afford to get out. Go anywhere, anywhere, even Israel. I've had Israelis that have joined my community that are like, we're not sure what to do. And my answer is get out. Like people, isn't it hilarious that the psyop has been get out of America? Are you joking me? Look at what's going on right now in Lebanon and Jordan and Yemen and Israel and Palestine and
It's all around the world. I mean, before COVID, we had the
no, but I
situation.
mean like in what right now you could order Uber Eats to your house, bro. And there's people that are getting bombed in civilian capital cities like Beirut. So
Yeah, it's
like
a big difference in what's happening.
well, I'm just saying, like the volatility, I think a lot of it was look here, don't look here situation. And now we've watched this war escalate so dramatically to make one area unlivable. And for the most part, I think the US is going to remain resilient for a lot longer than people think. And that's another that actually should be hopeful if your audience is American, which I assume many are.
Wait,
I don't think we're going to go through it as bad as a lot of people have even assumed. And again, this is the guy that was saying like the US dollar is the cleanest dirty laundry during the Shemitah year, where everyone was saying the dollar's going to collapse because Ray Dalio told you. And I'm like, fuck Ray Dalio. Like, does he have any data that proves what he's saying besides his outlook on comparing us to prior empires when all of those prior empires are historically false? They're based on history. They're not based on reality. They're based on stories. Okay. When you base what you're coming up on against based on mythology, you end up in a problematic place. And this is what I was telling about 1776. So I'm not trying to offend people here. I'm not trying to say that Ray Dalio is absolutely wrong about every single thing possible, but it's just opinions and it's sharing past stories. So I'm trying to answer your question about 1940.
yeah.
And 1940 is nothing like today at all.
When it comes to the American resilience, one thing I will say is like how we didn't see the government come in and really help a lot in Maui, and there was a lot of assistance that was being done by civilians.
Yeah,
And
because that's about FEMA, which isn't government. Which
and the same thing that in what's happening, because I think North Carolina has probably gotten it worse than Tennessee and South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. But I know everybody's gotten it pretty bad. But being that we're not getting government assistance and we're not seeing FEMA in these situations, and we see, like I donated probably 50 canned food items yesterday to the local sheriffs to give out, and everybody I know is trying to do everything they can to try to help the people. So we are resilient and we will help one another. And that's the one good thing about humanity is there's still more good humans than there are bad humans. And I'm starting to realize that more and more. And this tragic event had brought that to my attention because I was starting to think we were losing our morals and not caring about each other and just looking out for number one. And it seems like when shit really gets bad, people are going to do everything they can to look out for their brother and their sister. And there's enough good people that I think the bad people will be outweighed, because the only other unfortunate thing that I heard about specifically in Asheville, and I'm sure it was probably in some of these other towns too, is there was looting and rioting going on.
Yep.
And like apparently my friend Eric, who lives out that way, was telling me that they had to have armed guards at the Duke Energy place because of rioting. So it got it, you know, but at the same time, I've seen more good come out of this than those few negative things that I've heard. So that gives me hope with where we are, even if we have a situation with immigrants doing something or whatever the case might be. I realize that there are more good people here in the United States than there are bad people. And I would like to see that become even more.
Yeah. It just kind of is unfortunate that we have to wait till a tragedy to get together. But I think that, you know, I heard this really amazing rant from Tim Dillon. I don't know if you're aware of Tim Dillon, the comedian, but he was talking about 9/11.
He does Trump, doesn't he?
No, I don't think. I don't know.
Maybe there's someone else that does a Trump. I'm sorry.
I know Shane Gillis does
Shane Gillis. That's who I was confusing.
Yeah, but part of the rant with Tim Dillon was he was just saying that like the big difference between C-19 and 9/11 was during 9/11 we all got together, like kind of brought Americans closer together. Of course, it made I don't like to say us, but it made many people very racist and bigots. I saw some horrible shit because I lived in New York at the time when
Of course,
9/11
Middle
happened.
Eastern people, yeah.
Precisely. But in general, it brought us more together in that sense. So when everyone is going through a crisis, and this is the New World Order knows what I'm saying, bro. Like the New World Order knows that when they engineer a crisis, it's a lot different if you're not separated and divided online versus if you're the other, right? In 2000 and 2001, we didn't really hang out only on computers, and today we do. So when we look back at 1940, or we look back at 1965, or we look back at 1917, I mean, we're really in a new thing right now.
You're
And
right.
I to comfort people who are going through this, and I don't know if you want to talk too much about this, but I'll share the idea. What will comfort people is things like the metaverse or some sort of virtual reality, augmented reality, or artificial intelligence applications that will be already added to your devices that will allow the comfort to those who are not able to manage it all, psychologically. That'll be a lot different than in 1941, right? When we didn't have any access to that tech. And in 1941, like it made it most likely, and again, I'm assuming here, it made people more resilient. The people that didn't know how to take care of themselves probably needed to learn how to take care of themselves. And then also because we didn't have grocery stores on every corner or Uber Eats, people already knew how to grow their food. They knew how to pickle and preserve things. They knew about canning. They knew about all this stuff. Today, we don't know that. Nobody knows where their food even comes from. And the food is all in bags and processed, and it's killing us slowly. So, I mean, just to realize those are big differences. One thing, brother, one last thing, and I hope nobody in the Carolinas or Tennessee or any of these affected areas had to deal with this, but I kind of assume they have. And it's the people that are on medications and need insulin for diabetes. I mean, what the fuck are you going to do when your house is a boat?
There's not much you can do. I don't
Right.
even know. I don't know if you heard about the situation of
I don't know a lot about what happened recently. So
well,
if you know anything, I mean, feel free to.
all I was going to share was, and I'm not sure if this guy was a content creator or if he was just a former police officer or something to that effect, but the guy owned a helicopter, and him and his son went from South Carolina up to this location. Like they were online trying to get, like, given his number. They gave his number out. People were contacting him. He was trying to do some rescue stuff, and he ultimately ended up having a fire chief put a no-fly zone because of him and told him he was impeding on their operation when he was like the only guy out there with a helicopter going up and taking people up, bringing them back down from these mountains where they couldn't get down, and ultimately separated a married couple because they wouldn't allow for the helicopter to go back and get this woman's husband. So I mean, there is stuff here too that's happening, and I kind of wonder what the agenda for that is. Whether it's just some individual asshole who wants to be a power freak, control freak, or was there another agenda that was going on where there was a no, I don't know how you say it, but a no fly was not put into place when he was flying around. It was set in place after this police chief or fire chief told him he was impending on the operation. If he goes up again, they're going to arrest him. So crazy shit, man. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah, let's reconnect. I'll definitely message you to follow up, and we can figure out maybe a time that we can have a conversation about something that does not involve us looking at charts at all. Because I think there's a lot of information that we can share that, even because I mean, all the stuff that we talked about when it comes to the geopolitics and things here within the United States, this is all going to affect financial markets. All of this is, and that's why I think it's important for us to be bringing these topics up in addition to showing some information about charts. So on the screen right now, I've got your X account pulled up. I encourage people to make sure they're following you over on X if they're not already. And again, it's at Waters ABVE. The link is in the video description. I'll put it in the pinned comment. I got a playlist with all of Jordan's previous appearances. I'm going to have a link for his YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed over at Waters Above on YouTube. Check out the Patreon so you can get the inside information. Check out his website, watersabove.com. Right now, I've got watersabove.com/free pulled up where you can get the free course that Jordan worked extra hard to make sure he got out for you guys. So take advantage of this free course that's available. And before we wrap up, Jordan, do you have anything else that you want to add about anything that you're doing with your courses, your content, or anything to that effect?
No, man. I mean, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate everyone checking out the free course. And then if you've enjoyed that and you want to invest in yourself and move on to other things that I got going on, I'd really be grateful. And I'll be doing a live stream this Saturday. So I'm really looking forward to that, this post eclipse live stream. And yeah, I mean,
You're streaming at
otherwise,
6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, which I think is the first time you've announced the time that you're live streaming, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I try not to do that because it's kind of like it's first of all, it's a weekend. And second of all, I like to have some flexibility with my life. And I feel if I'm going to take an hour or two out of my day to hang out with everyone and yeah, it should be on my schedule. I don't want to become this like, where people are expecting something. I think that's unfair to me. So I try to keep it flexible. But the reason why I'm doing it this particular weekend at that time is because I'm going to be doing a giveaway. So if any of your audience want to partake in that, all you got to do is go follow the YouTube channel, follow the X account that Rice has just showed you, and then you'll see there's a comment inside of the Twitter account, inside of the X account, where it says giveaway. And then also in the last YouTube video that I put out, the one that says most investors do not see this coming, it says free giveaway literally in the title. And you can go ahead and listen to that video. I share everything you need to do to partake in that. And I'll be picking 3 winners on my YouTube channel and 3 winners on my X account. And it's for my crypto mastermind course. So if somebody who happens to win already has my crypto mastermind, I will allow access to another course that I have. But basically, it's just my way of giving back. So I've released a free course, and also I'm doing a giveaway for 6 of my courses over on my website. Really excited. And I'll be, for fairness and transparency during that live stream, picking the winners live so that everyone could see, it's 100%
Right.
organic and natural. And I'm not like cherry picking anyone. So yeah, I'm really excited to do that. I'm just kind of trying to provide as much value as possible at this very important time.
Sweet. Well, I definitely would encourage people to check out your newest video on YouTube, the one that says free giveaway that I've got pulled up on screen, because it does give all the instructions about how you can enter multiple ways, because you can enter multiple ways. You don't have to just do it through YouTube or through X. So check that last video out. And then A1 wanted to say he already got your free course. He's going to check it out later tonight and wanted to say thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate you, bro. Appreciate the support.
And I appreciate you coming on, man. If you want to bear with me 1 second, man, I'm just going to do this quick wrap up. I want to play some music and get us out of here. And you're more than welcome to bounce, and I'll text you.
Yeah, man.
Happy Eclipse Day.
Yeah, you too, brother. You too.
Happy Jewish New Year. And
yeah, I don't celebrate it, but I've been talking about it more in my life. I probably talk about it more than the Jews do.
You probably do, in all honesty.
I know, it's crazy. I can't believe how much. I can't believe. And then we have Yom Kippur coming up. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about. But I'll let you go, brother.
When's Yom Kippur?
I think it's on the 12th. Let me double. Yeah, it's on the 12th. So not this Saturday, but next Saturday.
Shit, there's so much going on, because in 5 days we have the anniversary of that thing that happened last year on the 10th of October, which man, this algorithm, it's going to kill me.
All right, brother.
Thanks again, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Take care.
All right, bro. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in for today's live stream. I greatly appreciate it. Again, I just want to remind you guys that are still watching, we got over 100 people watching. If you haven't smashed that like button, it'd be greatly appreciated. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already subscribed. If you are already subscribed, make sure you really are still subscribed, because right now I'm about to go under 31,600. And you guys have known that the peak of the channel has been 32,200 and something. So I'm down right now about 600-700 subscribers since my peak. Everything I've been doing has been negative growth, and YouTube is doing everything they can to make sure that my content is not found, which makes it very frustrating to continue putting out content when nobody watches it. So I am slowing things down on the crypto side. We're going to be doing 1 to 2 videos a week until I can get some contributors and other people to help out, or figure out a better game plan to be able to move forward, to be able to get views on the channel, to be able to get growth on the channel. Because when you have negative growth for almost 2 years, it does not encourage you to keep doing hard work. And I've been working my ass off since January of 2018. And again, this is a team effort. I can put out all the content in the world, but if you don't watch it, if you guys don't smash that like button, comment, share, repost, those kind of things, it does not help what we're doing. I would much appreciate if you guys could take those opportunities to do those things, not only for me, but for all your favorite content creators. You're the other part of the equation. This is a team effort. So I greatly appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to join me today, because time is our most valuable asset. I do have links down below in the video description for the things that we shared. I have links for Jordan's socials, and I encourage you to make sure you subscribe. Make sure you sign up for my mailing list at ricetvx.com. You can watch both of my channels at ricetvx.com on the home screen. There is a private side for members only if you're interested in supporting what I do. You could check that out. And I was thinking if there's anything else I wanted to add before we wrap up. I will be doing more content on the other channel, Rice Against the Grain. Now, if you're watching over on X or if you're watching on Rumble, you'll still see content coming out. It just may not be as much crypto content. But I am going to be focusing a lot more on the Rice Against the Grain, going down the rabbit holes of the stranger than fiction. That's the stuff that I think that people really want to see and hear more of from me. That's basically what I'm gathering from the analytics. So I do appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to those channels. Links for everything is down below in the video description. As always, I encourage you to be a blessing to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. Be the glitch that you want to see in the matrix. Be the change that you want to see in this world. Question everything. Know yourself. Be a good human. Do what you can to help your brothers, your sisters, the people in need. Anything you can do to help out the people that suffered from the Hurricane Helene, whatever you can do to help out the people in North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina would be greatly appreciated. I appreciate each and every one of you that are still here listening. David Brumbelow, thank you. Crypto Billy, A1, Crypto Chef. I can't list everybody. One with Nature. I appreciate you, but just remember, this is a team effort. I can't do this without you. And if nobody's watching my videos, it makes it very difficult for me to continue making videos. I've got a lot of high-profile interviews, and a lot of them just get hidden and buried. I've had David Brumbelow tell me about a situation, unfortunately, where there's an X post. It's my pinned X post. He likes it. They unlike it. There's nothing that he can do to keep that like on that particular post. So it's not as if the censorship and shadow banning is just on YouTube. It's pretty much everywhere. So again, if you support content creators and if you really enjoy what us as content creators are doing, if you appreciate what we are doing, remember, you're the other part of the equation. We need you to participate, not only by watching, but by smashing the like button, hitting that thumbs up, sharing the videos, reposting, commenting like you are during the live stream, and commenting on the videos after the streams, or just commenting on videos that aren't live. David Brumbelow is probably one of the best at doing that. I appreciate each and every one of you. Appreciate you, DB. Billy, appreciate you, brother. Appreciate everybody for watching. And yeah, we're going to ride this thing out with this little diggy. Much love, fam. See you soon.
Rice TVX, the Mike's live wire. American Pitbull, real gold buyer. Sound money advocate, rights defender. In the crypto arena, he's the top contender. From the gritty streets of the digital age, Rice lays wisdom, chapter and page. Silver, gold, he stores only the bold. Land, life, and liberty, these values hold.
Can you feel that eclipse action? Can you feel the energy?
Constitution, deep dive, knowledge revival. Navigate the system, critical for survival. Rice engraved like inscriptions on metal. Pitbull in the game, lead foot on the pedal. Land acquirer, a strategic mind. In the fight for freedom, he's frontline. Educator on rights, the law he'll explain. Chris Rice the Pitbull, breaking the chain. In the arena where truths collide, Rice TVX, the certified guide. Silver and gold, land and rights. American Pitbull in the freedom fights. In a world of chaos, he's the calm in the storm. teaching the masses, ready to inform. Keys to crypto, rights we cherish. His wisdom lights paths that others perish. Guardian of wealth, from digital to ancient. His legacy crafted, fearless and patient.